Okay, so we've done pretty much everything up to here, and we're ready for objects. Objects and object populations are really what makes Terrigen 2 incredibly awesome, and way better than the original Terrigen, because you can actually put your objects in there. My plan for this tutorial is really just to put one grass population and a tree population. That way the free users can follow these tutorials the same. And I'll probably be using both the tree and grass from Wally's pack, but if you want, you can also use some of the trees from X-Frog's pack, but I'll be using the pine from Wally and the grass from Wally. Anyways, for objects, you can insert a single object using one of these. TGO readers for a Terrigen object, and OBJ reader is for an object file, wavefront object. Any models imported are pretty much from those two, and everything else are pretty much built in except the LWO reader. But disk, grass clump, all these kind of things, they are there in Terrigen. And when you insert something, it goes to the origin, which is 0, 0, 0. So you need to move it to where actually your camera's pointing at, pretty much. So we're going to insert a population here, a TGO reader, and I'm going to browse to the models, and I'm going to find Wally's pine tree here, and I'm going to use this one, sure. So I'll import the object, and now what I need to do is I need to find where to put it, because it's currently placed at 0, 0, 0 as its center, and it's 1000 by 1000 for the population. And when you insert a population, you get two things here. One is the population, and you see the three little boxes, and one is the object that's being used by the population. Basically, don't touch this right here. It'll mess up the population, and you rarely ever need to touch those, because it might make your populations disappear. Now the multi-shader and those kind of things you can go to. Sometimes it might be missing files, and you'll need to go into the shader here and find them manually. But if the person did it right, your object should load in fine, and all images should get loaded in fine, and there should be no errors that pop up. See, 0 errors. So we now have the population in here, and the render quality is set to medium. I always just set it to very high whenever I use them, because I don't care about that little extra stuff to render time. But that way I don't forget on a later render. Now I also need to find a place to put this, so I'm gonna just kind of temporarily zoom up here, and these are my pine trees. So I'm gonna kind of pick somewhere where I want the center to be. I'm gonna copy the coordinates, and then I'm just gonna paste those coordinates right here, and you can see that's where the population went. So if we go back down to our render camera, you can kind of see it's right over there. So we know that we have to shift it a little this way. Now 1000 by 1000 isn't enough, so we're going to increase this here to 3000 by like 6000. Let's see how that does. I think that'll do it. That looks good, I guess. So back to the current render camera, and we're going to hit preview instances and see how many it makes. Populate it, and let's wait a second, and there's our instances of what we currently have. They seem a little small for a tree, as you can see. So what we're going to do is we're going to go object scale, and we're going to increase the size to 3, 3, and they could use a little more spacing, so we're going to put a spacing of like 15, and we're also going to use a density shader. Now what we can do is we can assign a density shader, and you know what I'm going to do with this one? I'm going to do a color shader, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to find a painted shader. This is one of the newer features. I'm going to turn off the preview for now. Here, let me get a good view here. and I'm going to make this slightly bigger here, 5,000. Because what we're doing is I'm going to actually paint where I want these trees to be populated on. So usually when you're using the painted shader, you wait for the render detail to get to better detail. I usually wait till about 60 or 80. That's usually high enough quality. Another thing you want to do is go to the painted shader and you can change the brush size and the flow. I'll just leave the flow at this and the brush size at this for right now. I'm just going to pause it there. Okay, so what we do is we hit the little brush icon here, we hit start painting, and the painter shaded we want. And now you'll see a little circle, that's where we're painting. So our camera's right there, and we kind of want trees along here. Now what we do is we go back to here and we hit populate. The painted shader is good if you're creating like a really big area, but you know you can only need trees at certain points. Previous instances. Okay, yeah, we don't want those trees right there. These trees are a bit close. I mean, the rest of them seem kind of okay. But those two trees right there are kind of crazy. We're going to try a different seed. Make the trees taller again, too. There we go, that's better. So what we're going to do is make them scale up a little more again. So let's try 6 and 6. And we're going to space them by 18 now. Whoa. Okay. Definitely need a seed. So now we're going to add our grass population. And so I'm going to go back to the models. I'm going to go to grass patch 1. And again, I'll just choose the middle one. Now for this one, I'm going to pick around where the center is. So I'm going to calculate its coordinates. Oh, oops. Gotta hit the right ones. Okay. And what we can do is we can hit preview instance. Yeah, we got a ton of small little ones. And they're in the water, they're everywhere. So what we're going to do is we're going to use another density shader. Only this time we're going to go to a color shader. And instead of painted shader, we're going to choose a distribution shader v4. And when we go to that, you'll see you're familiar from the shaders with altitude, slope, and all those sorts of things. So I'm going to go to altitude. I'm going to limit the minimum altitude. And our minimum is around 374. Make 374. And we're going to have a fuzzy of 1. We're going to use Y for the altitude. And then we can go here and we can populate. And the grass should, oh, we can disable the pine trees now. Okay, so now you can see the grass is there. But I mean, we don't have enough grass there and we need to increase the scale. So we're going to increase, oops, 6, and actually we're going to make it vary, 6 to 7 for the pine trees. I actually hit the wrong one. So for this object scale, let's try 5 to 6. And let's see what that does. It's kind of big, I think. So we're going to cut it down to 3 to 5, perhaps. Okay, and then we're also going to make it a lot closer because grass is kind of close to each other. So instead of that, we're going to have object spacing of 5. And now I'm going to go back to my shaders, and we no longer need that green shader because we put in our vegetation. So I'm just going to delete that. And then we have our objects here, and I'll disable the preview for that. And we have our objects in. So I'm going to do a quick render, see what it looks like, and you'll be able to see that. And then we'll continue on to the next section.